Hello, welcome back to Kang the Stuff. I'm Kang, and today I want to talk about my latest project, Oraclous Octobus. So this video will show the process time lapse of the entire project, and I'm just gonna voice over it. I know we don't talk about other stuff beside movies on this channel a lot, but I am an artist first, human second, so I feel like it'd be fun to share my process with you guys. Oraclous Octobus is essentially an oracle deck that I draw one card per day for 30 days. It's my own version of Inktober for 2024. The prompts are all unserious online sayings because I am chronically online and I've always been fascinated by the language that was born out of online culture, specifically like Stan Twitter. I tried my best to keep the made up words to a minimum because I want people to understand it, even if they're not familiar with these terms prior. But ultimately, I just chose the terms that I find timeless and iconic and funny because I just wanted to show a little bit of my personality and my humor through this deck. Okay, on to the time lapse. So the first course of action was making a frame. I really like this hand motion because I do this in real life a lot, but to me, in my brain, it comes from internet culture, so I feel like it's very fitting. So the first prompt is right behind me, isn't it? It's a very common media trope where someone's talking badly about someone else and then that person shows up unexpectedly and they get caught in action. So I thought, why not have this personification of rain and thunderstorm, talking smack about rainbow and getting caught, and the raindrops are like sweat of nervousness. You can take it in a literal sense of like the rainbow happening after a storm, but you can also look at it in a more silly, funny, haha way of like, you know, this rain person just scared to death that the rainbow is coming to end them. Because naturally, they're the antithesis of each other in terms of symbolism. I kept the line work and the rendering very straightforward, very simple. There's not a lot of elements because I really want to not spend too much time on this, and I think this really set the scene for all the card sets to come. I even thought about doing a monochrome or like limited palette, but I went with full rainbow just as usual. The second prompt is villain origin story. You will see that throughout this project, I usually change the main text at the end when I'm finished drawing. So right now it's still like day one's prompt. For this one, I knew right off the bat that drawing a full story would be not feasible for the level of simplicity that I aim for. So I just went with a more petty route, like simple, like someone dropping their ice cream or like losing their balloons and then they instantly become evil. I thought that's super funny and fits with the phrase very well. And also, this is a slight reference to the mint ice cream guy in Lilo and Stitch. Next up is Girl Who's Going to Be Okay. At first I tried to do a nature surrounding, but then I quickly moved to an internal acceptance kind of vibe. Because I truly think you can embody this energy no matter where you are. It's more about like mindset and outlook rather than your physical surrounding. If you're not familiar with this meme, basically it's from a skit video based on a character trope of the main character usually at the end of the movie trying to get her life together, and though we don't see good results just yet, we see the trajectory of where she's going forward, and she has had like a change of heart or like a change of mindset where she feels like everything's gonna be okay, and we actually trust that with her. This phrase is very cathartic to me, so I really want to capture that feeling. The imagery of leaves flowing is a reference to Colors of the Wind in Pocahontas, and her blanket that she's wearing and scrunchie is a reference to Selena Gomez's viral blanket photo. If you know, you know. After every drawing session, I always go into Lightroom to edit the color balance and exposure, contrast, everything. Next up is the Scream I scrumped. For this one, I chose to depict icons that's relating to Scream that everyone would know, or I hope everyone would know, instead of inventing my own visual gag, I guess. I just didn't have a lot of time to work on the drawing that day, and so I just wanted to do something simple but recognizable. So we have Ghostface, so the Scream movie franchise, the screaming chicken toy, and the screaming goat that has become a meme. For the colors and composition, like I said, I kept it simple. I tried to go for 2000s or 90s rock bands or like campy horror movies with these bombastic freeform star-shaped designs. I think this card really solidified me getting used to being very straight to the point and like not having a lot of hidden details like I'm used to. Next up, we have Wow You Can Really Dance. This is based on a TikTok trend a few years back, and that sound is taken from like a joke or a parody type song from 2013 or 14. The back and forth is an important part of this trend, and so I wanted to depict that by showing a split screen. The clothes I included here are mostly inspired by 80s, early 90s dance workout instruction videos. There's a specific move from the challenge that I really wanted to include, but you can see me kind of struggling here because depicting acting movement is the bane of my existence. And then for the bottom right, I included this shoulder move from the original video. For the background, because this is about dance and music, I wanted something flowy and fun and dynamic. This prompt is very much about mutual appreciation and like healthy competition and just having fun, and so the colors reflect that as well. As you can see, originally their workout clothes are in 2 different color palettes, but then I just came to the conclusion that it's too many colors, so I went with this teal, purple, neon yellow color palette for both of them. To be honest, now looking back, I still don't think it looks like they're doing the move that I had in my head, but I feel like I did my best. I feel like with dance moves, you can't really depict them in just one panel. You need at least a few panels or an animation to show that they're doing the move. Next one is skill issue. This one originated from online gaming spaces. It's basically satirical shit talk phrase that dismisses valid complaints about difficulty and accessibility issues to blame it all on the player's low skill level. So I drew the pixelated hearts symbolizing lives being depleted, and it's all being blamed on the main player. Next up is I can fix him. I don't really know where this phrase originated, but you probably know it from like therapy talk and most recently the Taylor Swift song I Can Fix Him, No I Really Can. Basically, this is about the toxic idea that you can change someone fundamentally and fix, in quotation marks, all of their red flags and all of their bad habits by just being with them. For this, I drew a fractured music box where the broken pieces are shiny to show that in the perspective of the person who has this mindset, the broken pieces can be put back together. Red flags are shown only barely, while the pink roses, angel wings, and halo are shown prominently because this person is viewing this man through rose-colored glasses and putting him on a pedestal. The man's design is based on the archetype of that guy who's like so balanced and so grounded and into self-help and is super artistic but just has some little quirks that's redeemable. For day 8, we have theater kid energy. For this, I wanted to do something dramatic and theatrical. And what's more dramatic than singing in the rain? Like both the movie and the action, the imagery itself. I'm not gonna lie, I did try to emulate How I Met Your Mother a little bit with the yellow umbrella, as you can see here, and just like New York in that musical moment that Barney sings, I think it was called Nothing Suit Me Like a Suit. The rest of the choices, like the clothing, the big earrings, the spotlight, and the cardboard cutout, it's what I think of when I think of theater kid energy. It was giving Rachel Berry a little bit. It was giving Pearl from Pearl, like that iconic I'm a star moment. For day 9, we have Okay Go Off Monarch. This is a gender-neutral variation of the term go off queen or go off king. These terms have been around for a little while now, and basically go off just means looking really good and or doing something really well. But this newest iteration of the phrase is just the best to me, in my humble opinion. Monarch just feels so regal and royal to me, whereas queen and king are just so commercialized and they just feel inherently modern for some reason, maybe due to the overuse of them in modern culture. Here the pose is referencing Rosalia and her iconic gum-chewing concert photos / clips. This person is wearing an apron, holding a plate, and has food all over their mouth because I wanted to reference the adjacent phrases of ate and left no crumbs, served, cooked, all of that. I kind of struggled with the colors here, but I think it came out okay-ish. One thing though, I wish I changed the hair color. It just looks so out of place with all the other colors. At our 1/3 mark on our 10th day, we have born to yap, forced to shut up. This phrase specifically is not that popular, but I've seen people use the same template of born to do something but forced to do another completely opposite thing being thrown around a lot, and I just wanted to include yap at least somewhere, sue me. Basically, this phrase is all about a habit or a personality trait that one feels very natural in embodying, but is forced to not do it and do something completely different because of outside or external circumstances. I chose yap, aka being very talkative, and shut up because that is literally me. Like, I cannot stop yapping, but there are a lot of circumstances or situations where I am just forced into silence. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that too, right? Visually, this is very straight to the point. Being silenced against my will just feels like all the colors are sucked out of my being. For day 11, we have lights are on but nobody's home. Now, famously, I'm not really a hater by nature, but There's something about this phrase that just scratches my brain in a very satisfying way. My interpretation of this phrase is more about people not paying attention rather than a low level of intelligence. Visually, obviously, we have the lights shining outwards from the hollow inside, but we also have some loose screws, a loading bar with disguised sunglasses and fake mustache because it's all about appearances versus what's actually going on. And yeah, I actually use a limited palette for this one, and it works? Who would have thought? Next up, we have They Could Never Make Me Hate You. This one is about undying love and devotion. Now, love and hate and any kind of like that strong emotion is really hard for me to visualize without it being like very specific. So I knew I had to choose something specifically controversial for this one, and so I chose durian. Concept-wise, this is once again very straightforward. It's about a durian fanatic, and though this phrase is usually used for a controversial figure, like a public figure, like a person, but I don't think I idolize any public figure to the point that when they get into controversy, I won't see reason and still stay by their side. You know what I mean? Now, durian, I can get behind and say with my whole chest that I would love until the day I die. For sure. Next up, we have Sure Grandma, Let's Get You to Bed. I think this one originated from like a stock photo or an ad for a nursing home. To explain this, an equivalence of this I can think of is the saying of like, back in my day, but it's more about a false perception of the past rather than just reminiscing straight facts. It's like when I get old and I say Twice was once the biggest K-pop act in the world at one point. That's kind of close to the truth, but not exactly. So my grandchildren would have to say, sure, Grandpa, let's get you to bed. There are some nods here from the original meme photo because I wanted to pay homage to that, and the ring is also a ring that my own grandma gave to me. Next up, we have So Close, That's the Shape. This is probably the most chronically online of all the prompts so far, but I just had to include it. It's like so iconic. Like, the original tweet that spawned this saying will be taught in schools, like it's the ancient text. I don't know what else to tell you. I do think this is a case of like the girls who get it, and the girls who don't. And it's okay if you don't get it, because I really just cannot explain it. So I'll just put the original tweet on screen. And because of all this, I wanted the visuals to be as straightforward as possible. So it's cookie cutter in both a literal and metaphorical sense. Next, we have Somebody Lied to Her Several Times. This is an excerpt from an interview with Tiffany Pollard, or aka New York, on Big Brother Celebrity. Again, I don't really think I'm a hateful person or anything, but there's just something about this nasty read that New York gave towards Gemma Collins on that season of reality TV that I just think it's just so fascinating and funny. Furthermore, like, out of context, it can apply to so many different situations, which is perfect for an Oracle deck. For the visuals, obviously there's a nod to Pinocchio in the elongated nose, but there's also references to the Rococo style because this is all about appearances once again, and lies, gossips, and bluffing, flattering. So I just started thinking about vanity and obliviousness, and the explosions in the back are because in Vietnamese we have an expression of someone blowing things out of proportion or exaggerating, and it directly translates to exploding. The big hair is also referencing Gretchen from Mean Girls because this person being lied to, she thinks she has all the secrets even though it's not real. And complementary color palette just for contrast. For day 16, we have The Friends You Made Along the Way. This is taken from the saying, the treasure is the friends you made along the way. Basically just saying like the journey was the real treasure rather than the actual destination. But I think the internet kind of ran with it and made it more satirical in nature. Nonetheless, I wanted to return to the wholesomeness of the original phrase. Kind of like friendship is power, kind of rhetoric, if you will. So I drew a very stereotypical treasure chest that's filled with memorabilia of friends and family and loved ones to show that what's precious is not even the relationships that you retain after the journey, it's more the memories that you made and carry with you. I chose this wooden texture and this toy-like structure because I wanted to emphasize the childlike wonder and the youthfulness that I think is the charming point of this phrase. Also added this glowing light and some sparkles to add to the whimsiness of it all. Notably, you can see there's no background. I usually don't do the spotlight in the darkness composition anymore, but it just feels fitting for this one. For the next one, we have "hear me out." This phrase is usually used when someone has an opinion that goes against the general consensus or like the modern zeitgeist of like what is wrong and what is right, or what is desirable and what's not. But I think we mainly see it being used for like physical attractiveness, mostly for fictional characters, and especially fictional characters who are not human for some reason. And someone saying "hear me out" is just basically them saying that character looks hot to me and they're made specifically for me. Here I chose to combine that with the Debbie Ryan hair swooping meme, "if you know, you know," just because this phrase and the phrase "why he kinda" just always reminds me of this Debbie Ryan moment. So there's some fish gills motifs here because the subject of this "hear me out" is a fish-like creature, and I didn't want to do another split screen, so I put them in a locket because nothing says adoration more than locket to me. I took a little bit longer to finish this one just because I was on call that day, but I had fun. Also, I added the nail bite motion on the other hand because I was getting the perky energy from this phrase and from the drawing as it keeps going, like very kicking my feet, giggling, twirling my hair kind of vibe. Like that gif of that girl nail biting in the arena. I'll put the gif on the screen. I don't know, I didn't intend this, but isn't this kind of giving Chaperone casual music video? Like a human girly falling for a sea monster? Next up, we have "I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this." This is usually used to deliver bad news or like to sit someone down and like going through the facts with someone because they've been sorely wrong and loud about a topic. Intervention vibes, you get it. I think this wording was popularized by the Pink Sauce Lady when she was confronted by a customer on a talk show. So the post is referenced from that, but then the rest is just I really wanted to emphasize the bad news aspect. Not sure the post is totally legible through the newspaper hand, but once I realized that it was too late, I just had to commit to it. But I do like the color palette for this one. For day 19, we have "should have stayed in the drafts." This one is super literal. It literally just means you said something you shouldn't have said. Word vomit kind of vibe. Or just something that sounds better in your head than in a tweet or on paper. Here I drew someone trying to suck everything back up after they spilled their boba tea. And if you've done this before, you know it's not an enjoyable or effective task at all, merely even possible. Just like how you can't really fully retract something that you said online. The neatly organized drafts in the back are now ruined by this one spillage. If only you had more time before you hit post. We're now hitting the 2/3 mark, and for day 20, we have "So Baby Girl." You might have seen the abbreviated version of Baby Girl BBG before, and basically it's just the internet's yet another way to infantilize grown men. Mostly just harmless fun and games though. Like I've seen it mostly for TV and film characters and sometimes K-pop idols as well, but mostly just men that have very affectionate kind of mannerism. Like Prince Henry from Red Wine Royal Blue, or every single character that Pedro Pascal has ever played. So here I drew a rugged looking man with a very kind and baby girl-esque looking expression, at least to me. I find it kind of ironic that the term baby girl is mostly used for men. Like, what does that say about our society? And sure, I've seen people use baby girl for women or genderqueer people, but I can't help but question, like, why does it have to be baby girl? And obviously I had to use baby blue as the background color, and I drew these stickers just like in the baby girl edits that I've seen, because what is more chronically online than misgendering and a little bit of a cutesy edit. For day 21 we have Pookie. Not gonna lie, this was the least creative out of all of them. I was really short on time on that day, so I just did the first thing that came to mind. If you didn't know, this is a term of endearment, usually used for significant others, but it has been used for a long time. It just had a recent resurgence. In this reincarnation though, I think it's broadened to be used for anyone that you have a relationship with that you think is cute. It's not just about romantic relationships. So I drew someone surprising someone else with a bouquet of flowers, just very classic, straightforward way of expressing affection. And sparkly eyes in the background just to showcase the infantilization yet once again. The outfit is also nothing special, it's a mismatch of things. It's kind of Tudor inspired, but mostly just Ren Fair nonsense and inconsistencies all around. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of time on that day, so I just kind of rushed it, have to be honest here. I think it came out okay. It's definitely one of my least favorites, but I think it got the message across. For day 22, we had Let Him Cook. I'll just say it, I was completely inspired by Ratatouille for this one because that's the extent of my knowledge when it comes to cooking. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the original image of Let Him Cook, like the original meme, is the screenshot of Woody holding back toy Sora in Kingdom Hearts 3, and someone just slapped on the Snapchat text of Let Him Cook. And I referenced that with the expression of the eyes and the oven mitts. And yes, I am aware that this term is not really about cooking, literally. It's more about cooking up a plan or carrying out a strategy that people don't get the vision of right away. But because of that, I thought it'd be fun to lean into the literal meaning of the phrase while still keeping the playful energy of the slang. So the random placement of ingredients is a reflection of how the process to something great can be messy and chaotic, but a little trust goes a long way. Next up, we have flop era. Era just means a period in your life, but flop is the one I think we need to explain more. This is a term used in celebrity culture, specifically the music industry, about a low popularity of a figure or body of work, let's say an album or movie, in comparison to others or in comparison to itself or to themselves in a previous period. So together, flop era just means a period in your life where things are going worse than what they have been in the past before it and or in the period after it. Basically, it's just a way that some Gen Zers use to say a rough time. It can only exist in relation to other periods though, hence the split screen here. The imagery is pretty straightforward in my opinion. I used a lot of muted grays and a lot of noise in the flop era just because personally, when I go through my own flop era and when things are going badly, I just feel kind of numb to it all. I also wanted the two non-flop eras to be as different as possible because I want to show different definitions of good. Like it doesn't have to be like one note. At the end of the day though, it's all relative and comparative, so sometimes it's all in your head, and getting out of your head is half the battle to getting out of your flop era. Speaking of getting out and over it, the next one is girl get up. I'm not completely sure where this term comes from, but I've seen people use it as a retort to people being down bad for those who are not worth it. Like when people were thirsting over Jeffrey Dahmer, for example. Ew, by the way, gross. Despicable even. But this could also be used in a more general sense of like getting your life back together, like a call to action of taking your agency back. Once again, I chose to depict this in a more literal sense of a girl getting up from her slumber. The cosmic-looking winged insects are representative of the universe because usually this call comes to me from the universe. The pillow stands in for comfort, showing that sometimes to get your agency back, you have to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. And the wet streaks on the pillow can represent either drool and or tears. The shattered mirror showcases a broken perception of things. I also wanted to showcase the chaotic, messy nature of the situation she's in by using color. Finally, the desaturated hair becoming gray before it becomes golden again showcases that sometimes it becomes worse or numb before it gets better. On day 25, which was my birthday by the way, the prompt was nor. This is the only prompt that is a made-up word, so you can't search it up on a normal dictionary. Basically, this is making fun of the Australian accent way of saying the word no. Sorry to my Aussies out there. I know a lot of you don't really sound like this. It's just like an over-exaggeration, but I just can't not find this funny. Like I use this on a daily basis, babes. I don't know what to tell you. Pretty sure this originated from the mermaid character that's Australian in H2O Just Add Water, Cleo, or should I say Cleor. So I added some water texture in the background just as a nod to that. And I usually use this term when I'm in a situation that makes me want to laugh and cry at the same time, such as cutting my bangs too short. That's why the character is doing that here. So yeah, pretty straightforward, but I think it's perfect for this word. For day 26, 26, we have touch grass. This phrase is usually used as a comeback against the chronically online understanding of things without consideration to the overall bigger picture and how people actually live offline. On a more literal level, touch grass can just mean that you're spending too much time inside. It's a call to get outside and actually connect with nature. So here I drew a patch of grass bursting through a desktop screen, the cursor acting as a real hand touching or clicking on the grass. As a fun Easter egg, all the shortcuts on the screen are callbacks to the cards I've drawn so far. From top to bottom, left to right, we have so close that's a shape that can never make me hate you, theater kid energy, should have stayed in the drafts, skill issued, friends you made along the way, and let him cook. Next we have my Roman Empire. It essentially just means something that you think about a lot, something that is on the brain a lot. It started off from a TikTok trend where a creator claimed that men often think about the Roman Empire more than you would expect, but essentially the phrase doesn't really actually relate back to the actual Roman Empire. Nonetheless, I still reference Roman aesthetics a little bit with the Ionic order and the ornamentation on the column here, as well as some grapes for good measure. In terms of concept, at first I didn't know how to actually visualize this idea, but then I thought about what was my Roman Empire at that point, and it was the song Apple by Charlie XCX. I really overlooked this song just because it was popular at first, but upon revisiting, I really like the metaphorical connections between apples and upbringing and generational development. And so everything in the dome here is imageries from the song, from the red apple turning yellow or green, to it being run right to the core, to throwing apple to the sky, and the airport with the airplane there. This one is once again another case of the girls who get it. Like, people who have never heard of this song would not know what this is about at all, but you know, that's just the only way that I can see it working. After all, an oracle card's charm to me is its ability to be up for interpretation. For day 28, we have nature is healing. This is kind of in the same vein of sayings like the balance is restored or everything is as it should be once again. This stems from COVID times when there's less human activity and inhabitation, so nature is seen thriving again, like air pollution levels dropping or water clearing or animals coming to cities more. Within the scope of this meme, I really like the juxtaposition of human versus nature, so I chose to draw this giant rubber duck, which started out as a public art piece but has become very commercialized and marketable, being released back into nature and exists peacefully without having to be a tourist attraction alongside some swans just swimming around and just be. The dolphin's necklace is referencing the symphony meme, if you know, you know. Just because I can never not think of that meme when I see a rainbow anymore. Thank you, YouTube Shorts. Also, slight reference to the ugly duckling, that's why they're all swans and not ducks. I really like how this one came out, to be honest. For day 29, we have main character energy. I will be honest, this is the point that I started to get a little bit burnt out from all of this. But nonetheless, this one is just about like taking matters into your own hands and like being the focus of your own life. It's quite self-explanatory. So I drew this girly who's a little bit more eccentric, but still blank slate enough for people to project themselves onto as a good main character, and motifs of her clothing and color palette repeats in the background but stands out among other things in the background. Yeah, this is really on the nose, but like I said, I was really ready for this to be over at this point. I do like her red hair though, and the color combination works well enough. She has a quirky main character expression on her face, and so I think overall it's effective, but nothing to write home about. I do think the simplicity and straightforwardness of this card is very necessary for this deck to become a little bit more approachable, and we need something to balance out the more cryptic or specific / confusing cards that we've had so far. Also, I took longer than what would have been necessary for this because I was chatting with a friend when trying to finish this up. I can never learn the lesson that I can't multitask. Finally, on day 30, we have the classic Live, Laugh, Love. If you didn't know, essentially this is a motivational quote from the 2000s. It's the epitome of basic. I'm sure when it started being used, people did think of it with more earnestness and purpose, but nowadays I don't think I've seen anyone who use it unironically, and not with the purpose to critique compulsory optimism. With all that context in mind though, I did approach this in the most earnest way that I think is possible. The seemingly random assortment of symbols here can be reflective of how quote-unquote universal these motivational quotes can be, that they lose all substance. But if you look closely, they all showcase the zest of, or the beauty beauty of living, loving. The heart is wounded, but it keeps on keeping on. And that's the end of the 30 days. Originally, I had a 31st prompt as well, but then I couldn't do it anymore. So this is just the back cover time lapse. I layered all the cards on top of each other to create this kind of collage, but you can't really see what's going on. That's intentional. So I want to make something visually cool without it actually meaning anything. Overall, I learned a lot. I had a lot of fun. It was definitely a challenge in terms of time and level of details, but this definitely quenched my thirst for making art that's relating to pop culture, but it's not just straight up fan art, which I have nothing against. It's just not my thing. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about my thought process. If you have any questions or feedback, or if there's any discussion points that you want to talk about that's relating to this project or just online sayings in general, I'd love to hear them. Please leave them in the comments down below. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I'll see you next time. Bye!